Hi, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Shoes Off. I'm Justine, and today we're going to talk about why people with a disability don't disclose they have one, and why I did. Hard to believe, but almost 20 years ago, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. It was an absolutely devastating diagnosis. As many diseases, when they're considered incurable and difficult to manage, with terrible symptoms that are, at least in my case, relapsing, remitting, unpredictable, and quite painful, it's overwhelming in the beginning. I have to say that it changed my life quite dramatically. I had just gotten married, and 3 months later, I no longer felt my left side. I was totally paralyzed, and I was lying in bed trying to imagine how I would ever continue with any of the plans that I had made. My first reaction, of course, was, I'm just going to pretend that I don't have this. I'm not going to share this with people because somehow I felt lesser. The diagnosis made me feel different. The interesting thing was, I really wasn't any different. But because I felt so different, I wanted to change the reality of my situation by trying to hide it. It took a tremendous amount of energy to do that, and I absolutely hid it for 10 years. So for 10 years, I pretended I didn't suffer from any of these symptoms. I pretended that I was perfectly fine. Only a small group of people knew the truth. And certainly, my closest colleagues and friends at work, many of them had no idea. The times where I had a hard time walking or when I was suffering from other symptoms, I tried to conceal them. What was I afraid of? And what were many people that don't disclose? And what are many people that don't disclose afraid of? I guess ultimately, we're afraid we're being judged. We're afraid that we're no longer normal. So why did I finally change my mind about this? Why did I finally come clean? It wasn't a big moment of enlightenment. I didn't sit on top of a mountain and think about it. Basically, what happened is in 2012, my daughter was still quite small, and part of my job was negotiating sports sponsorships. So it was Christmas Day, and the Christmas Day game for the Chicago Bulls, my daughter really wanted to go to. I was so ill. It was very difficult for me to walk, and I had never gone out in public with a cane. Up until then, if I had difficulty walking, I would actually hide and not go places and just sort of deal with it in my house. But that Christmas Day game, my daughter really, really wanted to go. And so for her, I pulled myself together. I managed to get a cane, and off we went to the game as a family. But it was very difficult. It was difficult psychologically, but it was also very difficult physically. And when she wanted to get a picture taken center court, which was such a delight, I wrestled with that cane and with my body. It was heavy and burning and difficult. But I made it out center court, and just to stand there was so hard. What I didn't realize in that moment were how many people that I knew were looking at me. And suddenly, before I knew what was going on, people were saying, "Hey, what happened? Why do you have a cane? Were you in a car accident? Did you fall off a horse? What happened to you?" And suddenly all these emotions were rushing. What was I to say? Should I lie to them? Should I pretend I fell off a horse? Should I say I was in a car accident? Before I knew it, I said, well, actually, I have multiple sclerosis and I've had a flare-up. My gosh, people were shocked. My very best friend's son was a player on the Chicago Bulls at that time. And he knew that I had MS. So he just came over to check on me. And then some of the other players came over and they were all asking, "Hey, are you okay?" And I started admitting, well, actually, I have multiple sclerosis. Well, very quickly, people said, "Oh, yeah, my sister has MS," or "My neighbor has MS," or "Wow, I had no idea. Are you okay? When did this happen?" How could I tell them it had been 10 years? Long story short, the president of the Chicago Bulls, Michael Reinsdorf, was the one that really touched me when he said, "I can't believe that you have multiple sclerosis, and I've known you this long, and I had no idea. I guess in that moment, part of me felt like I wasn't a very good friend. I think he probably felt like maybe I didn't trust him enough as a friend to help me, to be there for me, to honor me, to treat me the same as he always had. But really, it was inside of me. And that moment where it felt like I had betrayed our friendship changed me. I realized that I wasn't being true to myself, and that actually I wasn't being true to my friends, to my family, or to the people I met. So it's not like I started running around disclosing it, but I started practicing telling people in the right circumstances. Up to that point, if I went to a spa to get a massage or somewhere I had to fill out a form and you had to disclose whether you had a disability, I wouldn't disclose it, almost for fear that I would jinx myself into having another attack. But I started to fill out the forms properly. And that was a private moment between me, myself, and the form that started to help me accept the reality of disclosure. But the biggest moment where I really took control and decided to integrate not just telling those close to me, but just telling people, was when I was speaking at a sports marketing conference. There were 500 people in the room. I stood up on the stage. I was in heels, trying to balance, not really feeling the bottoms of my feet very well. At that time, I didn't need to use a cane, but I really wasn't balancing well. I really wasn't confident on my feet. And as I stood there, I had my cane with me, but I didn't need to use it in so much as I needed the balance. And why I wore the heels, vanity. But I stood there with that cane and I could feel everyone in the room staring at my cane, looking at this woman in high heels with a cane, wondering, what is she doing? Why does she have the cane? She seems young. What would she need a cane for? Maybe they also thought I'd fallen off a horse or I was in an accident. But suddenly I felt my entire body go hot. I felt myself losing my place in my slides. I felt like the whole room was closing in on me. And a person like me who had been doing so much public speaking, suddenly I couldn't speak. I was really nervous. I lost my way. So in that moment, although many people think it took a lot of courage, I was really saving myself. I stopped speaking and I said, okay, everybody. And I looked out into the crowd and I said, this is going to be the audience participation part. Everyone was stunned. I put down my cane and I took off my shoes. And I stood there in bare feet. And I said, I'm going to tell you all why I'm taking off my shoes and why I'm standing here in bare feet. And it's really because I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis a number of years ago and I can't really feel the bottoms of my feet. And in order for me to present to you what I'm here today to do, I need to do this. I need to take off my shoes and stand here. Now, to be perfectly honest, before I really did that, that's what I was saying. I raised my hand and I said, how many of you out there are wondering why I have this cane? Now, maybe that was kind of a bold thing to do because nobody wanted to admit it. But a few guys in the front put their hands up, and before I knew it, the whole room put their hands up. And that's when I disclosed. In that exact moment, I told people. And guess what happened? I delivered the rest of the speech about sports marketing, about the value of branding, about things I knew professionally. And at the end of that speech, the next speaker came up without their shoes on. And suddenly, I had told people the truth. And what happened is people came up to me and said, my mom has MS, my grandma had MS, my brother has MS, my neighbor has MS. Suddenly, this support came to me. And although I admit I wasn't totally comfortable with my decision in the moment, it was the right thing for me to do because I was no longer wasting energy concealing that I had this. Instead, I could walk with confidence and pride with my cane. I could own it. I could be the girl with MS and still be a successful business person. Integrating those two worlds for me became very important. And to this day, I'm still an advocate for people with disabilities, for young professionals, for older professionals, for anybody looking to get into the profession, for anybody that's wrestling with their illness. So I share that with you today because the reason people don't disclose is they feel they won't be given the opportunities. They feel that they'll be judged. Most importantly, they feel that you will not treat them as the people they are. In order for us to see past disability, we have to see what the person is made of. And when I would feel insecure and lose my confidence, the former CEO of Bank of Montreal, Bill Downe, he said something to me in my weakest, most difficult time. When I said, I don't think I can carry on with my career anymore, he said to me, Justine, you're the same person you've always been and your work product is exactly the same. Nothing has changed. All that has changed is how you feel. You are the same person. So let's remember the next time that we're talking to someone in our family or our friends, or maybe in our community, and we may know something about them, or maybe we don't. Let's encourage people to feel confident, to share who they are, what they're struggling with, and be open. So I'm telling you that I'm happy that many years ago I shared that I had a disability. But so many people are not comfortable, and I wasn't for so long. If you have an opportunity, think about that and decide how you would like to advocate for someone to be able to share more of themselves with you, with their work environment, and with their community. Thank you for joining me. We'll talk about this a little more in another podcast very soon.